Hi, I'm Valerie, and this is my August 2020 reading roundup. I read 4 books in the month of August. They were The Bone Collector, Mallory, The Body is Not an Apology, and Intuitive Eating. So I'm going to break them each down and tell you what I thought of them. First up is The Bone Collector by Kathy Reiches. And this was 4 short novellas of the prolific writer Kathy Reiches. If you've ever seen the show Bones, which, if you have, it's not a great show. Don't judge the book series by them. This was a quick and easy introduction to the world of Temperance Brennan. She's a forensics anthropologist who initially, in her sort of origin story, is working on ancient remains, but manages to get roped into working on the more recently deceased. In this book, you get insight into her origins and a preview of her relationships, both personal and professional. It was a really quick and easy read, interesting enough to make me want to watch an episode of the TV series, which I had never seen. I'd only ever seen sort of the previews or ads for it. One was enough. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it gets better, but I wasn't going to stick around. But the 4 novellas were good. They were quick stories. I like sort of this science-based aspect of it. Good enough for me to look up the series at my local library, and it looks like she has 17 or 18 books, so I have quite a few to follow along with. So that was a good one. The next book that I read was Mallory, which is the long-awaited follow-up to the book Bird Box by Josh Mallerman. And just to give you a heads up that I'm going to talk about and reveal spoilers from the first book. So if you didn't read Bird Box, maybe you want to jump ahead a little bit. I won't reveal what happens, too many spoilers in Mallory, but I just wanted to give you that heads up. In Bird Box and Mallory, the world is in a future where these strange creatures have appeared, and if a human sees them, they turn into a violent, crazy person, essentially, where they will hurt anyone around them. They'll hurt themselves eventually and generally end up killing themselves. In Bird Box, Mallory and her 2 small children end up having to traverse to what they hope is going to be a safe haven by boat, all with their eyes covered so that they don't accidentally see these creatures and go mad and hurt each other and themselves. The second book picks up at the haven that they found in the first book, their next steps in finding a new refuge, and then eventually choosing to leave it. And I'd give the book kudos in that it had the same sort of you'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge style that was very suspenseful and engaging. The first book had that, the second book had it as well. And I found the relationships between her son and daughter, who were unnamed in the first book, but named in the second, very believable. What I do not like about the book were some of the twists definitely required a suspension of disbelief and just didn't make a lot of sense to me, as did the ending itself, which I give up. But it was interesting regardless. It was a really fast and fun read. On a day when I was having a bad day, I treated it myself to the book and read it the same evening. So quick and easy. The next book I read was one that I read for book club, and it's called The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonya Renee Taylor. Sort of torn on my ratings for this one. I mean, it's definitely above a 3. I don't know if it's a 4 for me, but I think the concepts in the book are really important. loving yourself as you are, celebrating what your body can do, divorcing yourself from the cultural constructs that teach us to aspire to an ideal that is, essentially racist, classist, and ableist. And for most people is totally unattainable. It's not a sustainable aspiration to have. And it really keeps us distracted from appreciating who we truly are, or really doing much of anything other than expending a ton of energy, time, and money on obsessing over food and exercise and superficial appearances. One of my favorite ways that Taylor illustrates that point is by discussing the poodle principle, which is essentially if we, would compare all dogs to poodles and, kind of point out or be unable to appreciate them for themselves because they don't, they're not the same size as poodles. They don't have the same hair as poodles, etc. It wouldn't make any sense. But we're able to appreciate, dachshunds and Great Danes and golden retrievers, all for who and what they are. Why can't we do the same thing for ourselves? Like, why are we holding ourselves to this thin white European, Barbie doll or whatever, as the ideal for all people? It doesn't make sense. I loved the stories of Sonya Renee Taylor. I listened to the audiobook. She read it herself in her own voice, and that was engaging. I believe she is sort of an inspirational speaker. She's a poet, etc. And she brought up some really important issues of, sort of the politics behind the body ideals that we have as well. Those were the great parts. Some of the book felt repetitive for me. She does say radical self-love many, many times in the book. And I do feel like this is a book that I'd probably recommend, depending on what type of reader you are, that you get the physical copy of the book. I feel like some of the sections where she was asking questions and having you pose kind of things to think about yourself maybe would have translated better in the book itself. But the audiobook, as I said, was good as it was read in her own voice. The fourth book that I read, and probably the book I found most powerful in August, was Intuitive Eating, a revolutionary anti-diet approach by Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And this is the fourth edition of their book. I think their original book was published in 1995, so 25 years at this point. And this edition definitely, I think, had some more nuanced approaches, talked a little bit about intersectionality and some of those issues having to do with race and class in the book, in this most latest edition. I'm glad I got the hard copy of this because I definitely annotated and took notes throughout. The authors are two dietitians, nutritionists. It's based on the work and experience that they've had for over 20 plus years. And there are really 10 principles that are really all about body trust, care, and acceptance. So some of the concepts that were in Sonya Renee Taylor's book also definitely had bleed over into this, though clearly their concepts it was written a while previous to that book. So the principles are to reject the diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, feel your fullness, discover the satisfaction factor, cope with your emotions without using food, respect your body, movement, feel the difference, and honor your health with gentle nutrition. So to kind of pare those down in simple terms, they feel like it's really important that you stop trying to lose weight and judging bodies, especially your own, because the true indicators of health are behaviors, not weight. Weight is not truly a science-based indicator of health. And diets fail in the long term for 90 to 95% of people. So for most people, there aren't enough studies of weight loss that go beyond 6 months or even 2 years. And it's really like around the 5-year mark that would make the most sense. And the weight cycling involved, the fact that most people, lose weight and then gain back even more weight than they lost, is actually harder on your health than just staying at a relatively higher weight. So they focus on working with individuals, getting in touch with their own body's cues so that you eat when you're hungry and you stop when you're full. They encourage you to their stopping the food police is stop labeling food as good or bad, and restricting food, because it's the restriction that generally leads to binging. And when you are able to trust yourself and give yourself permission to eat whatever you want through habituation, those foods kind of lose their power over you. And with most of their patients, eventually they end up in a place where, 90% of the time they're focused on more nutritious foods, and then 10% of the time they're eating what they call play food. So, processed whatever food. And it's all about really trusting that when you remove that restriction, and you'll be able to get past the need to overconsume, and your body will know what you need, and that you'll be able, through paying attention to your body's cues, pick the foods that work best for you. So I'm trying to take what makes sense for me from the book and adapt it to my own way of thinking. In the book, they're pretty adamant in being anti any kind of diet, or as they say, diet culture buzzwords like lifestyle changes. They're critical of WW's rebranding from Weight Watchers, and note that the wellness and health-based verbiage that many diets use now can easily be based in pseudoscience, and is often used as excuses for health trolling or concern-based trolling of people with larger bodies. I really felt like the sections in particular in the Intuitive Eating book on emotional eating, or eating for reasons other than hunger, really resonated with me. I'm trying to focus on working through the principles in this, though honestly I'm struggling with number one, which is one they say is really important, which is rejecting the diet mentality. Like, I'm totally good with doing it for other people, but for myself, it's really hard to let go of like the hope or promise, honestly, of losing more weight. But I think this is really important for me to try. I've been actively working on making peace with food, challenging the food police, working on better listening to my body's hunger cues, which is really challenging. I feel like the two extremes are really easy to hear. I'm ravenous, or I ate way too much. So doing the check-ins like while I'm eating about how I'm feeling, I think are really important. So I would really recommend this book, and I want to credit Abby's Kitchen, Abby Sharp, who is a dietitian. Her YouTube channel introduced me to the concept of intuitive eating and got me interested in reading this book. So have you read any of the books that were in the August reading wrap-up? Any recommendations for books for September? Let me know below in the comments. Thanks for watching. Give me a like if you want to help this channel, and subscribe so you don't miss new content. Thanks for watching.